to the loan, I didn't hear an answer to my question or basically my suggestion. Because when the Prime Minister speaks through you, Madam Chair, he speaks with a lot of confidence and surety about the loan conditions and agreements and potential loan conditions and agreements as it pertains to GEBE. And I could only deduce out of that that he's speaking from a place of having more knowledge on the exact specifics on the matter than those of us sitting on this side of the room, at least my person where that is concerned. I suggested the last time the Prime Minister was in the Hall of Parliament that we were to hold that we could hold a closed door where he'll be able to share more information as it pertains to the loan and the possible conditions and reasonings and details behind it, because I don't want to end up in a situation where I'm asked to vote for something when I don't have all the information again. So I would like to know in advance, before that time comes, what is the stance of the Prime Minister as it pertains to a closed door? Because I understand not everything can be shared in a public setting, but a closed door with confidential documents, like what happens sometimes, I'm curious to what his stance is on that. Furthermore, I also understand via some investigative work that GB could not apply for a loan of that magnitude because, of course, of the hack of the last a couple of years and their books, financial books. But my question is, I think the hack occurred 2 years ago, but what was the last year that GB has a finalization of their financial statements? What was the last year that the financial statements were green? Next, as it pertains to the budget, I see a lot of cuts done over the various ministries as it pertains to personnel costs. The cuts for personnel costs are this big, and the cuts for travel budgets are this big. It's a significant difference in the budget cuts for personnel in comparison to the traveling budget. Is there a reason for that? And if so, what are the reasons, and what is the motivation behind keeping the traveling budget as much intact as possible and cutting critical vacancies, or critical budget for the budget for critical vacancies? And last question, as it pertains to the SUL agreement, when is that slated to be? When is it the contract is going to be finished? And what are the plans of the Prime Minister or the government as it pertains to either renegotiating or seeing their stance in the market when it comes to other companies? What is the stance and vision when it comes to that? Those would be my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question to the Prime Minister would be regarding answer that he gave previously regarding the cabinets and the staff. So my question would be, Prime Minister, is the Council of Ministers following the cabinet policy in terms of hiring? I also, Prime Minister, sent you questions a while back. I believe the Parliament was a little delayed in sending those questions. I don't know if you have since then gotten the questions that I've posed to you. But I'll get an update from Parliament on that. With this budget amendment, Prime Minister, I think the main topic here will be the loan for the generators. And among us as MPs, we've had many discussions on this. And you also mentioned that since June, you went to the Netherlands, and there have been discussions since then. We're a few months removed from June. And my question would be, can we get an update on what the potential terms of the agreement would be with the Ministry of Finance, basically? Have you had even informal discussions on that? Do these terms or agreement look anything similar to that of the airport terms and agreement on their refinancing? And typical stuff when it comes to conditions on board member here, executive board member there. Were these in any way part of the discussions? once the Parliament approves this budget, we basically give carte blanche for you to continue this process. So you don't necessarily have to come back to us to do the tendering process. What I would like to know is, before the agreement is finalized, will you be updating Parliament on what this potential agreement is? Because now, once you approve this, you have that power already. What we've also done in the past was that we've gotten agreements and then we came to Parliament to amend a budget because we already know the terms and the Parliament is then empowered. So now we're kind of doing it backwards, similar to what Curaçao did with the ENIA, with their Parliament, giving carte blanche up front. So my question would be, after the terms are met, are you going to inform Parliament or the public on what these agreements are, or the terms are? There was also a question posed by MP Otley regarding GEB to the Minister of Finance. And in there, it was stated that the 1.5 billion budgeted was unexpected dividends. And a question I got from the general public was, has GB paid dividends before? So even though I know the answer, I'll ask the question, has GB paid dividends before? And what's the likelihood of them being able to pay the 1.5 million guilders in dividends? And has any government-owned company paid dividends in the last few years? That would be all my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Irian. Prime Minister, at this time, I see no other member of Parliament having reactions and or additional questions to your answers. And I ask you, Prime Minister, given the questions just posed, how you would like to proceed. Do you require a brief adjournment, or can you respond? You can respond now. I invite you to do so. Prime Minister.
Thank you, President of Parliament. Members of Parliament, thank you for the additional clarifications requested and additional questions. Seeing the amount of questions, I would request, if it's possible, for me to send the answers in writing to the members of Parliament, or if you want to come back to give in person the answers and the necessary clarifications. I can do both, but it's a lot of questions. I would need some time to give answers to all these questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And I would suggest, like I did for the Minister of Finance, that your answers be provided in writing ahead of the public meeting. You will be informed following the Minister's appearances here at Parliament that when we look forward to having the public meeting on the budget, so that your answers can be provided ahead, way ahead of those meetings. But I do see, and I give the floor now to MP Duran. MP Duran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I could understand that some of the technical stuff could require time, but there's some pretty opinion-based in the position of the government-based questions. I think about 3. I know I asked 1 for sure, so I can speak for myself, which I would appreciate if the answer can be given verbally.
Prime Minister, are there answers that you can give verbally? But first, let me ask MP Duran to clarify the questions that he's asking, that these be answered verbally. If you can just say which questions those are. Yes. MP Duran, could you refer to the specific questions?
Okay,
that
I
you
just
believe?
had 2 questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
The 2 questions were the fact that the Prime Minister alluded to the point where the housing project was cancelled since April, and I just asked for the documentation for that. So I believe that's at the fingertips of the Prime Minister. And secondly, I requested the position of government and in particular the Prime Minister as Minister of General Affairs regarding civil servants and the coverage of their funeral costs up to the maximum of 13,000 guilders. What is the position of the Prime Minister in that regard?
On that. The Prime Minister, you heard those two specific questions, and I would like to know how you would like to proceed. You, of course, can give verbally documentation that will have to be sent to Parliament in as far as it can be shared, whatever it is, I don't know, based on the question by the MP. And I do see that MP Irian has a question or reaction to my statement. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's not a reaction to you. It was in line with MP Duran regarding some of my questions. Similar to MP Duran, my question was basically referring to the loan, and if the Prime Minister will come out to Parliament. That's not something that you have to go back to your staff to get answers from. That's basically his position and his meetings. So that takes 10 minutes or less.
Thank you, MP Irian, for that addition. Prime Minister, are there, you hear the referenced questions by the two members of Parliament, and they would like these to be answered verbally. And my question to you is, when can that be done?
Madam Chair, concerning my position on those statements made, first to come to MP Duran concerning the first request he had for the documents. I will have, of course, to hand over these documents digitally through the President of Parliament concerning the discussion about the housing project. Your second question through the President of Parliament is what is my position as Prime Minister concerning the possibility of a structure to cover the funeral costs of civil servants. It's difficult for me to give an answer for the Council of Ministers. That is a decision. It has so much financial implications to give an answer just like that, because it will have implications for the budget for the country. But if you ask me personally, especially the way also you described and acknowledged the contribution of civil servants in their services to the government of Sint Maarten, of course I would like to be in a financial position to, of course, grant this extra service, actually financial relief in the times of enormous pain after losing a family member that is a civil servant. Of course, as a Prime Minister and as a person, I would like to facilitate the civil servants of a country with that financial help. But to give you an answer, if I can say, yes, I'm going to do it, that has such a big financial implication. That is something that we will have to carry in a Council of Ministers decision. Coming to the statement of MP Irian, did you have formal or non-informal discussion on the loan? That means on the terms, the conditions of the loan? The answer is no. We were in a national crisis as of the initiation of the new government of Sint Maarten. I realized immediately that we were in an enormous, threatening national energy crisis that would handicap the country in all its dimensions. Realizing the intensity of the problem, one of the first things was that I sat with the management and supervisory board of GEBE to see what were the options and possibilities. And after discussing also with GEBE about a very difficult ongoing negotiation for a loan by consortium here from insurance companies and banks that were not very enthusiastic to discuss a loan, I had no other option, realizing the intensity of the problem that was completely handicapping the country, to just look at that particular moment with the limitations that I had for a solution for the country. And at that particular moment, as Prime Minister, I decided to approach the BZK